Hello, B1 family. Welcome back to the channel, The Big Black American Secret. My name is Daniel Jackson, and the topic of this video is going to be getting to the root of the system of racism, white supremacy. Where did the system of racism, white supremacy come from? Where did it start? How did it start? Okay. First, I'm gonna read the goal of this channel, and then we'll begin. The goal of this channel is to build an unstoppable army of knowledgeable, black, melanated people in America and around the world that understand we as melanated people have one enemy worldwide, and that enemy is the system of racism, white supremacy. Our mission through education is to replace this evil system with the system of freedom, justice, and equality, as laid out by Dr. Frances Cress Welsing. We will need your help in building this knowledgeable army. You can help by subscribing to this channel, by donating to this cause through Cash App or PayPal, and by sharing the videos you watch here and any knowledge that is shared. In doing so, together we help fertilize the mentally enslaved, colonized minds of black melanated people worldwide, creating the perfect mental conditions for our children to grow up in a better, more balanced world. Dr. Frances Cress Welsing's video will be in the description. It's a must-see for every black melanated person. Okay, and also too, if you want to help support the channel, please subscribe, hit the bell icon, and hit all. You can also support the cause in this channel through PayPal and Cash App. The information is in the description, my email, and things like that. Now, the more and more we research not only the topic of racism, white supremacy, but the reason black people worldwide are in the predicament we are in is because of this system of racism, white supremacy. So where did this system come from? How did it start? Who are the culprits? Who are the players? You know, things like this. Okay, so I've done some research and I've done some digging, and I've come up with a timeline, of so to speak. On this side, you have time frames, and these are years going back to 700 AD. And on this side, you have systems, because of course this is present day. This is between the year 1863 and present day. It says racism, white supremacy. What did we have before then? We had white supremacy. And that was between the year of 1600 to 1863. And before that, you had European domination. This was 1492 to 1600. And before that, you had African domination. This is the year 700 through 1492. Now, I'm gonna pick that back up in a minute. And this is this is my whiteboard. You know what I'm saying? It's very crude, and my handwriting is horrible, but I want to kind of say a few things to kind of get your mind prepared for where we're about to go. Okay, now if you've done any research in this area, or if you haven't, it's fine. I'm going to point a few things out. In one or two other videos, I mentioned that slavery started here in the Americas by the Spanish, and then of course English got involved. Well, in America, all the European governments were involved in slavery on this continent, but initially, after Spain expelled the Muslims from Spain in 1492, they also expelled Sephardic Jews, because these two groups of people were friends. They were thick as thieves in Spain. Those who didn't convert to Catholicism, or didn't die, or was persecuted, were put on ships and sent to France, to England, to Germany, and some were sent here to the Americas. Now, England and France wanted to get in on some of the money that France was making, so they wanted to take that opportunity when Spain was expelling these Jews and these these Moorish, these Muslims, they wanted to take this opportunity to get hold of some of those people, bring them to the colonies, to the United States, give them free land, and have them set up plantations in farms and plantations. Now, these Sephardic Jews and Moors had a system of port Jews. You know, these are places boats can dock amongst the colonies and also in the West Indies to help supply the sugar industry in the West Indies with slaves. Okay? Now, so that being said, the first plantations here in the Americas were started by Sephardic Jews, which are black people, melanated people like you and I, and Moors. And of course, the French government and the English government made this happen. You understand what I'm saying? So that they could get in on some of that money that Spain was making in the slave trades connected to the sugar industry. I hope that makes sense to you. Okay? Now, when you have that kind of information and then you tie it with other information such as this. Okay, there's a book. Let's see if I can pull it up. I have it pulled up here. And the book is Black Slave Owners. I'm gonna show you a picture of it in a minute, but Black Slave Owners, Free Black Slave Masters in South Carolina, 1790 to 1860, and that's by Larry Koger. So Black Slave Owners, Free Black Slave Masters in South Carolina, 1790 to 1860, by Larry Koger. Okay. And again, that was in South Carolina because, again, the Sephardic Jews and the Moors had plantations here on this continent. They were given free land, hundreds of thousands of land to start these plantations from the French government and the English government. Okay, so, and then there's another book, and it's called Aristocrats of Color, the Black Elite, 1880 to 1920, and this was written by William B. Gateway. Okay, and then I have this pulled up, and this is from the Library of Congress, and it was written in 1950, and it's on page 190. It's called, and the book is this, the Lincoln Encyclopedia, the spoken and written words of Abraham Lincoln. Now, the reason that's important is I'm gonna pull it up and I'm gonna read what the screen says, just so you can get an idea of what I'm talking about. Okay, so give me a second. I'm gonna pull that up, and we'll just read it together. And again, this is Lincoln's own words. He's describing himself. He wrote a letter in 1843 to someone who he knew. Okay, now, and I hope you can see this, but it says Lincoln Abraham, personal description of. So he's going to give you a personal description of himself. He says, "Perhaps you have forgotten me. Don't you remember a long black fellow who rode on horseback with you from Tremont to Springfield nearly 10 years ago, swimming our horses over the Mackinac on the trip? Well, I am the same old fella yet." And he wrote this to a fellow named Joseph Hewitt on February 13th, 1848. Okay? And again, this book is at the Library of Congress. Now, there's something else here. I'm going to pause it. I'm going to let it stroll up for a minute. Give it a second to refresh. If my computer don't freeze, I do apologize about that. So we'll give it a second. Okay. And again, this is Abraham Lincoln describing himself. And that first one there, he described himself as a long black fella. Okay? Now here's a second description of him. "If any personal description of me is thought desirable, it may be said that I am in height 6 feet 4 inches, nearly lean in flesh, weighing an average 180 pounds, dark, complexion, dark complexion, with coarse hair, coarse black hair, and dark eyes. No other marks or brands recollected. Okay? Now again, that was Abraham Lincoln's description of himself. Abraham Lincoln was a melanated person. Okay? Now, I've laid that out for you because it's going to help you understand this graph here to some extent. Okay? It's going to help you to understand this graph to some extent, or this timeline. Okay? So, before the present day system of racism, white supremacy, you had white supremacy. Before you had white supremacy, you had European domination, and before European domination, you had African domination. Now, and here's the times, you know, African domination, and melanated people are the original people on every landmass on this continent. So of course, we dominated everywhere we were because we were the only people here in large numbers. You understand what I'm saying? Just people living, having just life and doing what we do. Of course, when you do live next to somebody, just like now, you sometimes gonna have problems with your neighbors. You know, no big deal, just normal shit, right? But anyway, so I'm starting this particular thing out 700 AD to 1492 because this was the Muslim in 710 AD. The North Africans, the Muslim North Africans, took control of Spain. They captured Spain and started ruling Spain, and they did that up until 1492. And if you look at history, you'll see that Spain brought, you know, civilization to Spain, so to speak. I mean, they from what they tell us in history books is the Spanish people didn't know much about hygiene. You know, the Moors taught them how to clean their bodies and take care and do stuff like this. And they built large, beautiful buildings that still stand to this day. Now, on all of the pictures they show us, those Spanish people all look like white Europeans. Now, I'm not sure if that's the case because, again, our history has been whitewashed. But what I do know is melanated people dominate on this continent. They tell us our percentage here in America as black people it's like 14%, and that's a lie. Whenever white people give percentages of population, the numbers are going to always be skewed. Because again, we're in the system of white supremacy. They have to be on top. Their numbers have to remain high in order to maintain control, because if they ever let go of that fact that they are small in number, then you could easily be overrun. You understand what I'm saying? And what I'm telling you, there is an article written by Benjamin Franklin. As a matter of fact, I'm gonna pull that up. Give me 1 second, because I like that article. It explains a lot. Let me see if I can pull it up real quick. He explains in this article just what I'm telling you, that the percentage of purely white people on the planet is very little. And I'm going to say it's probably about 10% and always have been. Okay. Let's see. Benjamin Franklin. And I've read this on a few different videos because it's just so eye-opening in this document. It explains a whole lot, and it bears reading as many times as you can, you know. And I'm gonna tell you, the first time I read it, I knew less about what I even know now. You know, now I know even more about this topic we're talking about. But anyway, I'm gonna read this real quick. I'm gonna blow through it. And this article is this is Benjamin Franklin. He's the guy that flew the kite with the key, electricity, one of the founding fathers. Observations concerning the increase of mankind, and this is 1751. Okay, and I'm gonna read the bottom portion of this letter. He was upset that the England wanted to send a whole bunch of Germans to the colonies, and this letter explains why he's upset. Okay, so I'm going to start reading here. It says, all right, it says, and since detachment of English from Britain sent to America will have their places at home so soon supplied and increased so largely here, why should the Palatine Boers, and that's German people, be suffered to swarm into our settlement, and by herding together establish their language and manners to the exclusion of ours? Why should Pennsylvania, founded by the English, become a colony of aliens, who will shortly be so numerous as to Germanize us instead of our Anglifying them, and will never adopt our language or customs any more than can acquire our complexion? Okay? Which leads me to add one remark, that the number of purely white people in the world, is approximately very small. All Africa is black and tawny. Asia chiefly tawny. America, exclusive of the newcomers, wholly so. America, what? Exclusive of the newcomers, black and tawny, wholly so. All, and in Europe, the Spaniard, the Italian, the French. Now remember, Spaniards. This is when I told you about the Muslims took over Spain. They show us pictures of all these white people, but here he says, and this is 1751. And in Europe, the Spaniards, which are Spanish people, Italians, French, Russians, and Swedes are generally of what we call a swarthy complexion. And swarthy means dark complexion. Okay? As are the Germans also. So he's pissed that they finna send all these dark-skinned German people into Pennsylvania. You feel me? The Saxon only accepted, who with the English make the principal body of white people on the face of the earth. So purely white people, skin tone white, very small. Here he says, I could wish that their numbers were increased. He wished it was more white people. Most racist white people do. Where we at? I wish their numbers were increased. And while we are, as I may call it, scoring our planet by clearing America of woods, they cut down a lot of trees to build homes and send wood to England, and so making this side of the globe reflect a brighter light to the eyes of inhabitants in Mars and Venus, why should we, in the sight of superior beings, darken its people? Why bring over all these dark-skinned people, right? You don't want no more black people over here. Why darken its people? Why increase the sons of Africa? Why increase the sons of Africa by planting them in America, where we have so fair an opportunity by excluding all blacks and tawnies and increasing the lovely white and red? Red are the Indians. Red is, you know what? I apologize for doing this, but I need to grab something real quick. Give me 1 second. Again, I do apologize. Again, sorry for the interruption. Okay, now, well, let me finish reading this and then I'll finish. It says, but perhaps I am partial to the complexion of my country, for such kind of partiality is natural to mankind. Okay, we get it. He's a racist. No big deal, right? But I read that to point out the fact that Benjamin Franklin himself said that the people who consider themselves purely white people are the Saxons and the English, or a portion of those people, because I'm sure it was some black people there as well, but are the only pure white people on the face of the earth. Their numbers are very small. All the other people, the French, the Spaniards, the Italian, the Russians, the Swedes, and the Germans, are what we call swarthy complexion. And swarthy is a dark-skinned complexion. Matter of fact, I'll Google it. I'll Google swarthy right now just so you'll have it in front of you. And then we're also going to Google one or two other things before we get into the main topic. Swarthy. Okay. And swarthy means dark skin. If you like tall, dark, and handsome men, you find a swarthy complexion attractive. Okay. Now, I'm going to Google something else real quick here. Give me a second. I'm going to Google the color of a penny. Color of 1 cent copper penny. That's what I'm going to Google. Okay, my computer running a little slow. I do apologize. All right, well, I'm gonna go right here, and we're just gonna put a copper coin color, brown and red. I mean red and brown. Okay, got that? Now, the Indians here in America were described as copper colored. I hate to hit y'all with all these definitions, but I want y'all to see what I see and know what I know. You understand what I'm saying? This is an educational process. And you could Google this as well. I'm typing in now the 1828 definition of American. Okay? Now this definition is powerful. And again, it's the year 1828. Okay? Now, people who came to this continent, people who explored here, described the people they saw. For hundreds of years, well before Christopher Columbus came here, other people, other explorers came here. And even after Christopher Columbus came here, other people came here. And they described, almost without fail, the description of the people they saw when they came here. And this is very important. This definition is going to tell you two very important things. One is going to tell you exactly who you are. And two, it's going to tell you what you have been experiencing on this continent. Okay? Now, here we go. It says, American, noun, a native of America. Well, you know what? Before I do that, let me ask you a very important question. Would you say that this copper penny is close to my complexion of brown? Yes? Yes? Okay. And all of us are just different variations of brown. Some of us are very light-skinned, damn near white. And other ones in your family are mahogany, blue-black, the spectrum. The black woman possesses the Eve gene. You understand what I'm saying? So now I'm going to get back to this definition. Oh, and of course the 1 cent copper penny is copper, right? So, American, a noun, a native of America, originally applied to the aboriginal. That means you come from the dirt. You come from the soil of this continent, or copper-colored races found here by the Europeans, but now apply to the descendants of Europeans born in America. So you, black man and woman, you are the aboriginal of America. You are not a West African slave, but the Europeans have been trying to steal our identity because it says American now applies to the descendants of Europeans born in America. That is a huge revelation. That is a huge revelation. Because all of this time, and if you stop short, you'll be thinking, okay, well, the Indians in our history book stole our identity. No. Those people, to some extent, are almost as victimized about this as we are. Here's what took place. Now, first of all, the Mongolian breed of Asian, which is those Indians in our history books, that's a Mongolian breed of Asian that come across the Bering Straits about 12,000 years ago. And that's what leading paleontologists tell us. Okay? And you could prove this. I'm getting a little ahead of myself, but those people are Eskimos from Asia. If you get a chance, find the 2020 census. You could probably even pull up one online. And if you locate where it says American Indian, I know you can't see this, but American Indian, at the very bottom it says Eskimo community. These people are Eskimos. That's all they ever have been. Now here's what took place when the Europeans got into white supremacy. Because at first, when they first came here, it was not about white supremacy. Now, Benjamin Franklin, obviously a racist person, but all the other European peoples looked like you and I. They were melanated. Okay? So right off the bat, it wasn't racism, white supremacy. It was more so European domination. European domination. And this is pretty much from 1492 to the 1600s. Okay? European domination. There were melanated black people and white people working together on this continent to enslave the Indians. Because again, the first plantation owners given Sephardic Jews, which were black-skinned people, and Moors, which were black-skinned people, given hundreds of thousands of acres of land to build plantations, to start the slave enslavement process, and to supply the sugar industry in the West Indies with slaves. Okay, these were melanated people. Okay, now, I forget my train of thought on that one, but it'll come back to me. But anyway, so we're going to start at the beginning down here. 700 AD to 1492. You had African domination of Spain, and these were North Africans. These were Muslims. Okay? 1492 to 1600, you had European domination. And this was, European domination was like the Spanish, and they a lot of those people, Spain. And of course, here I have the Muslim faith, but during this time, European domination was the whole European continent. You had Spain, England, Europe, all kind of working together. They were a dominant force. Now, don't get me wrong. Spain was holding it down. Spain, they had the biggest ships and the best ships. They were ahead of the curve, so to speak. You know what I'm saying? England and France were jealous of the money that was being made by Spain. So in 1492, when they expelled the Jews and the Moors, the Sephardic Jews, the black Jews and the Moors, France and England took that opportunity to bring in some of those people who were exiled like I say, gave them hundreds of thousands of free land in the southern parts of the colony and other parts of the colony to set up slave plantations and farms. Okay? Now, from the 1600s to 1863, you had white supremacy. What happened here was real important. What happened here was real important because this is where, because again, oh, you don't see this, but you see these little, I don't know, call them stars with a dot in the middle. I wrote it here. It's a little note that says, during this time, you had black and white Europeans and black Moors and Sephardic Jews working together on this continent. So all the way up to the 1600s and even to the 1800s, you had white Europeans and black Europeans working together. But what happened during this time, during white superiority, well, let me back up a little bit. There was an event that took place called the Bacon's Rebellion. During Bacon's Rebellion, some white aristocrats were killed because it was somewhat of a labor dispute. Here on the continent, you had a whole bunch of people. You had white and black Europeans who were indentured servants, and you also had the natives peoples, you and I, who were also indentured servants and slaves. Now, Bacon's Rebellion was an uprising. It was like a labor dispute, like I said. These indigenous people who were indentured servants, who worked side by side with the European indentured servants, black and white, was unhappy with the work conditions. You know, weren't be let out of contract. They were being treated like real slaves. Now, chattel slavery was serious slavery. Indentured servitude, you're only in working. It's a work contract just for your skill or your labor. But physically, they don't own your person. You understand me? Chattel slavery, they own your person. And they work you like dogs and don't give no shits about you. You know what I'm saying? So there was two types of slavery going on at the same time. Indentured servitude and chattel slavery. Okay? So, labor dispute, Bacon's Rebellion pop off. These people very pissed off, very upset. They kill a few rich people. Now, the folks in England, like, they finally get the insurrection down, and they say, hey, what the fuck happened here? What's going on? Why did this happen? The two groups of people, the Europeans, both black and white, were friends, lived together, had kids together, played, had fun with the Aboriginal Americans, the Native Americans, your people in mind. They were on the same level. And they say, we do not want this to happen again. What can we do to make sure that this never happens again? Here's what they came up with. Because, before that time, these Europeans, I'm getting ahead of myself. But anyway, same level. All indentured servants, black and white Europeans, indigenous American people. So here's what they decided to do, the aristocrats. They said, let's elevate these people, the Europeans, both black and white, to the level of white people. It wasn't about skin color. It was almost a tax status. You're whiteable. These people, because they're native to this continent and land, they're not taxable to the same level. You understand what I'm saying? These are true citizens of the soil. Okay? And I said that for a reason. I'll get, if I don't forget, I'll come back to that. So, Europeans are elevated to the level of white. Both black and white Europeans are considered white as a tax status because they were paying taxes to Europe. Okay? Indians, now these people are considered black or slave. See what I'm saying? So these people are feeling elevated, more superior, and they have perks. These people, these white people now, both black and white, can own indentured servants, can own slaves, can own guns, can buy land, can vote. You see that? These people cannot. These are now your niggers. Okay? So these people who were just buddies with them having fun together, fucking together, living together. Oh, now they too good for them. They've been officially tricked by the system. Okay? Now, this was 1600s to 1863. Okay? Now, white supremacy. Both black and white Europeans were superior. This part I'm going to have to pause, and this is where we get into what I was telling you earlier about you have aristocrats of color, black elites in 1880. And there's another book that I showed you on the screen, but there's a book here written in 1850. It says 180 black slave owners in South Carolina. You understand what I'm saying? And of course, Lincoln described himself as black. Okay? Straight from the horse's mouth. So, of course, when we see things like this, it brings up a whole bunch of confusion because we've been taught in the system of racism, white supremacy, that all black people were slaves here in America. Matter of fact, they were all brought here from West Africa as slaves because apparently they couldn't enslave the Indians because they would run away and we couldn't find them, they say, and so therefore we'd go get some West African slaves. But that's not what happened. The Transatlantic slave trade was a cover story for the real slave trade. And the real slave trade is, matter of fact, I'll just Google it for you. Because I want you to be able to Google this for yourself. International Indigenous American Slave Trade. The International Indigenous American Slave Trade, and this is what it reads. It says, European colonies purchased indigenous people as slaves as part of the International Indigenous American Slave Trade, which lasted from the 15th century until the 19th century. Started sooner, and matter of fact, the 15th century, that's the 1400s, the 19th century, that's the 1800s. This slave trade started sooner, lasted longer, but you never heard of it. You never heard of it. The transatlantic slave trade was a cover story for this slave trade. And it's actually told to us in reverse. We were taken from here to America, from America, taken to Spain, to Europe, even Sierra Leone, West Africa. And we also flip-flopped here in the States. What do I mean? They would enslave someone here in, say, Alabama, put them on a boat, and send them up to New York, and vice versa. And, you know, this is the way these things happen. Because it's hard to enslave a person and keep them in familiar territory. But if you lock them up, put them on a ship, they're easily controlled because you've increased their fear factor 100%. I hope that makes sense to you. Okay? But anyway, again, between 1600 and 1863, white and black European, you had white supremacy. White supremacy. And these white people were both black and white. And proof of it again, of course, is a book called, in 1850, and you could Google this, you had 180 black slave owners in South Carolina. And what did I tell you? The Sephardic Jews were given hundreds of thousands of acres of land to start slave plantations in South Carolina. That was the big slave hub. And those were Sephardic Jews and Moors, okay? These were black slave owners, Europeans. Well, some of them was European and some of them were Muslims and North Africans from Spain. You understand what I'm trying to tell you here? So this stuff is very hidden in our history books because the system of racism, white supremacy cannot stand up to the truth. You understand what I'm saying? It cannot stand up to the truth. That's why you don't know that Abraham Lincoln was a colored man. He looked like you and I. He described himself. Do you understand what I'm telling you? So now we move to, I keep forgetting this and it's so important. So 1600 to 1863, white supremacy. Both black and white Europeans in North Africans, of course, and the Muslims and the Sephardic Jews were considered just white people. The tax status is whiteable. Okay? Now, 1863, something very heinous happened. Starting in 1863, this is when you get into racism, white supremacy. After Reconstruction, that's when the North and South, I'm sorry. Yeah, well, I have it here. Let me just pull it up real quick, because this was after Abraham Lincoln was killed. And I do apologize for not having this pulled up and readily accessible, but you know how it is. You know how it can be sometimes. All right, there we go. Okay, yeah, here we go. 1862, Lincoln signed the Homestead Act of 1862. Okay, so Lincoln signed the Homestead Act of 1862. This was considered for the reason of westward expansion. But the Homestead Act gave Europeans the power to take land from people, specifically the Indians. And then in 1863, Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation, which supposedly freed slaves in people in area of rebellion. 1865, and I wrote real small. I want to say this is the 13th Amendment adopted, yeah, which supposedly abolished slavery. 1870, Virginia law made it illegal for black and white children to attend the same schools. So between 1863 going into the 1900s, white people took this opportunity, because this is, Lincoln, after Lincoln died, and after the war, the Confederacy lost that war, and the white Europeans wanted to take this opportunity. I apologize. Let me see if I pass the act. Okay. You know what? Let me go a little further. So 1870, I told you. Well, 1870, Virginia law made it illegal for black children to go to school. 1873, the Colfax riot, and that happened on April 13th, 1873. After this, the government could no longer prosecute racists for murdering blacks. I'm going to read that again. 1873, Colfax riot took place. After that, the government could no longer prosecute racists for murdering blacks. Okay? In 1875, Congress passed Civil Rights Act of 1875 prohibits discrimination in public places. Not sure. But anyway, okay. Now, if you know like I know, and you've been understanding some things, all of the race riots that were described starting in the late 1800s all the way into the 1920s, they call it the Red Summer. They described all of these as race riots. But folks, these were not race riots. What white Europeans were doing was making their way to the system of racism, white supremacy. All of those, like I told you earlier, those black plantation owners who also owned slaves, who was making goo-gaws of money just like their counterparts, the white counterparts, they took this opportunity to take power and land from those people and wealth. What they did was they lumped all black people into the same pot. They categorically erased the black European. They categorically and strategically erased the black European, almost from history. But we have the proof. You on the right channel. Subscribe to this channel, like what you see, hit the bell icon, and hit all. You understand what I'm saying? So all of those situations where black people were trying to flee the South because of the Jim Crow laws and all this, these people were still in their land, hanging landowners. And then what they would do, if you murder somebody and they have a large plantation, let's just say you're a white person and you're working on that person's property, and here it is, you come in with this eugenics, and you got people telling you superior, and so you get into your mind, you want to roll with this. You kill that landowner, you take control of that property, pay the taxes, keep the taxes current. After about 7 years, you can claim that property as your own under squatters' rights. Squatters' rights. Those laws are still in the books. You can do that to this day. If somebody died, your neighbor was to die tomorrow, and he didn't have any family members or no mortgage on that property, you take care of that property and pay the taxes just like this person was alive. After 7 or so years, you can claim squatters' rights and you can own that property. Okay? Now, so here's what I'm telling you, people. The system of racism, white supremacy, came from all of those systems before it. White supremacy, European domination, African domination. Because again, before the system of racism, white supremacy, which started in the 1800s, you had both black Europeans and white Europeans working together. There was no distinction. This is why Abraham Lincoln, when he said, he made a speech. I'm going to see if I can find this. He said something which was very important. Let me see if I could Google it. He made a speech about superiority or something like that. Abraham Lincoln. Let me see if I can find it under quotes. I'm going to have to get a little more specific. Abraham Lincoln. White superiority, maybe? Superiority. Let me see what comes up. Lincoln and race. Let's see if we get lucky here. All right, let's see. I'm hoping I'm able to find it because maybe I could just paraphrase it. He said something to the effect of, superior. I really want to find it because I don't like to put words in people's mouths if I could find a quote, you know what I'm saying? But it was the subject of superiority. It was the subject of superiority pertaining to white people and black people. And what he said now makes sense to me, knowing what I know about black Europeans and white Europeans, So let me try one other search real quick. That's a lot of words. I sure hope that ain't it, but let's. Yeah, I do apologize. I do. I cannot find it. Okay, wait a minute. No, here it is. Here it is. Okay, yeah, here it is. Appreciate your patience. All right, let me see if I can find the top of this quote. It's a lot of words. Okay. The first part of this quote don't mean a whole lot. But anyway, from Lincoln's speech, September 18th, 1858, and I'm gonna just read this whole passage. All right, it says, while I was at the hotel today, an elderly gentleman called upon me to know whether I was really in favor of producing a perfect equality between the Negroes and white people. Negroes and white people. Remember, black Europeans, like himself, were considered white people. We just went through that. While I had not proposed to myself on this occasion to say such on that subject, yet as the question was asked me, I thought I would occupy perhaps 5 minutes in saying something in regard to it. I will say then that I am not, nor ever have been, in favor of bringing about in any way the social and political equality of the black and white race. That I am not, nor ever have been, in favor of making voters or jurors of Negroes. Remember again, black and white Europeans elevated to the status of white, American natives, Negroes or slaves. Okay? Please remember that. Where was I? Negroes. Nor of qualifying them hold office, nor to intermarry with white people. Now think about what think, this right here is a doozy. I never read this whole thing before. This is my first time ever seeing this whole thing. I've always seen the last part, but he says, let me back up. I will say then that I am not, nor ever have been, in favor of bringing about in any way the social and political equality of black and white races. So he don't want the races to be equal. Okay? That I am not, nor ever have been, in favor of making voters or jurors of Negroes. He don't want them voting or being on the jury. Yet he is melanated. He described himself as black. Why is that? That's because he's European. He's European. You understand what I'm saying? He don't see himself as black. He see himself as European, therefore superior. I'll read on. Nor of qualifying them hold office. He holds office, and he's black. So he don't see himself the same as the native blacks. He's European. He's European. Please understand that. This is the missing bit of information that they have stolen from us. This is huge. Okay? Nor to intermarry with white people. And I will say in addition to this that there is a physical difference between the white and black race, which I believe will forever forbid the two races living together on terms of social and political equality. In as such as they cannot so live while they do remain together, there must be the position of superior and inferior. And I, as much as any of her man, I'm going to read this again because this is a big one too. And I, as much as any of her man. Whose man? England's man. Her is mother country. He's telling you, I am from mother country England. I'm European. His father was German, while his mother was a Melungeon. His mother was native to this land, but he see himself as a European. Okay, now I'm gonna read that in. And I as much as any of her man am in favor of having the superior position assigned to the white race, because he sees himself as European. Man, this is so good. This is so good. It answers so many fucking questions. It answers so many fucking questions. Okay? So, now, anytime anybody read this, and with all the pictures they show us of Abraham Lincoln as being a white man, when he's obviously on a brown penny, you feel what I'm saying? The subliminals are incredible. These people know 100% what they've hidden from us, and they continue to hide it. And they continue to hide it because they, like the definition says, they think they are the Americans. When they get upset with people who are from different places, they always tell them, go back to where you come from. That's because they think they own this shit. No, white people are from Europe. Y'all need to go back to where y'all come from. You feel me? And you think about it. Everybody, every other group of people have something in front of their names. Hell, even us. Black Americans, Jamaican Americans, Chinese Americans, African Americans, Chinese Americans. But white people are the only group of people that don't have that in front of their names when you talk to them. You don't say, hey, you're a German American. Hey, you're an Italian American. Hey, you don't do that. They're just American. Do you see the slickness of these people? All this time, they've been stealing our shit. Our identity, our land, our labor, our resources. People, this is why I'm so passionate about what I do. And I need for you to get as passionate as I am. I need for you to spend $49 and just get the video information of this information. And these are videos that I've compiled that I've personally, that took me down the path I need to go down to. Now, because of the system of racism, white supremacy, and our brains are scrambled like Rubik's Cubes, that video of Dr. Francis Cress Welsing that's in the description will help to unscramble your brain a little bit. And then these videos that's going to show you 100% that you are an Aboriginal American. And if you're not 100% satisfied after about 2 weeks, because it's a few, I mean, I want to say it's about 100 hours of videos, if that. But anyway, you watch them in the sequence that I'm gonna give them to you. And if you watch those videos, and I'm able to watch them all on my downtime and a couple hours in the morning or at night before I go to bed, in about a week, you get it all in you. And you'll know what I know, but it's 100% money back guaranteed. If you're not convinced that you are an Aboriginal American after you watch these videos, you get your money back, guaranteed, no questions asked. And also too, it's the same thing with the coaching. We take the same material, but I hold your hand. You know, we walk through the material. We meet 4 times, 1 hour per week, for 4 weeks. Okay, and the reason the coaching is important is because it not only cuts your learning curve. When you go through, you're gonna go through a bout of depression because your old identity is going to die. You're gonna take on your new identity, but your old identity is gonna die. We're gonna hold a burial for it. And of course, when somebody close to you dies, everybody who loses someone personal to them is gonna go through depression. I did with my mother, and I'm sure a lot of y'all did this too if you've lost someone close to you in that aspect. You go through the 5 stages of grief. That being said, it's real important that each black person on this planet, and especially in America, get this information in us as quickly as possible so we could move differently. Okay? People, it's all laid out here. It's all laid out here. You know what I'm saying? So Abraham Lincoln and people like him, all of those black slave owners in the South, in Carolina, William Ellison, you know what? Here's what I'm going to do. Also in the description will be a video about Abraham Lincoln, because I think you need to see this for yourself. I want you to see this for yourself. Okay? But it explains a lot. Now, getting back to what I was telling you. During this time here, after 1863, white Europeans came up with the idea to erase the black European. These people went on a terror campaign to kill and destroy the black European. Because you cannot have black Europeans if you want to be white supremacist. It won't work. It does not work. They must do away with all of those rich melanated Europeans who were making a lot of money in the slave trade. And that's exactly what they did. They made an agreement. I want to say it was the Republican Party. No, it was the Democratic Party. They made an agreement where they would take the military force out of the South, which left those landowners vulnerable. And that's when all hell broke loose. The KKK was created after those red shirts. There's a group called the Red Shirts that first started, kicked off the terror, and then it was KKK. See, all of this was orchestrated. It was a governmental operation. I mean, everybody was involved in this thing, from government down to the lowest levels of police forces. That's why during these so-called race riots, no one was arrested. No one was held to the fire for this. Not even insurance companies paid claims, because they named them riots, which made it think that both sides were equally responsible for what took place. Like black people rose up and white people rose up and they just started fighting. No. White Europeans killed and murdered landowners with impunity, knowing they would not be punished. All orchestrated by this government. Mainly because the Confederate states were on the side of England during the battle. So when England lost the war, they was like, fuck the Confederate. Fuck the Confederates. Fuck them. And those Confederates, a large percentage of them were black Europeans. You see how that works? It was a perfect storm for them to usher in the era of racism, white supremacy. People, we got a lot to learn. You got a lot to teach your kids. You on the right channel. Subscribe to this channel, hit the bell, and hit all. Support this channel through Cash App and PayPal. The information is in the description. There'll be 2 videos in the description. Dr. Francis Cress Welson's video and the video for Abraham Lincoln. Okay? And it's from a guy who I follow. I think of him as a mentor of mine because his research and chronology is excellent. Kurimio Aha. Please watch his video and then follow him. Very important. Okay? On that note, I'm going to end this recording. Thank you all for your patience. You've been wonderful. And I will see you on the next video. Thank you.